Hey, good evening, everybody. We're back for a Friday night edition of Meteorology Lab, December 8th here. And we finally cleared out, got clear skies, and the temperature is falling very rapidly tonight. There's a look at the charts right now. The axis of the coldest air, we can see that runs from about the Midwest area down to Louisiana and the Western Gulf. This forms kind of a thermal trough, and I'm looking at the thickness in blue and red here. That's those thickness lines right there, and it forms this region here where the cold air kind of sags southward. That compares sharply with the warm air along the west coast right there. So we've got plenty of cold air, and let's see if we can take a look at that in Louisiana right now. We'll head to the SQT charts. I gotta find where, yeah, there they are. Okay, so checking out the SQTs in, we'll try Jacksonville, or Jackson, Mississippi. So this is right there in that cold air. This is going to be the coldest temperatures. Top of that layer, about 18,000 feet up at the top. This is very deep cold air. Up there at the top, you can see that if we bring that down sort of diabatically, very loosely, we get temperatures in the 70s and 80s there. So this is part of the tropical air mass up here. And then down below, we've got the cold air, and then temperatures are sub-freezing. The whole column there, basically sub-freezing. And they fall, temperatures fall from about the 20s down to the teens, and then stay in the teens and 20s all the way up through that column. Let's try one more example. We'll try Slidell, which is across Lake Pontchartrain from New Orleans, and there's what it looks like. The cold air is a little bit shallower, only topping out at about 14,000 feet, but it is very cold. Temperatures about 36 there at New Orleans, and probably going to be a cold night. Although, it looks like the clouds are hanging on right there, the column showing saturated conditions. Let's try going further north. And we're talking about maybe going up further north towards Chicago. So obviously this is getting into the bulk of the cold air, and then the core is right there near Moosonee, Ontario. So let's work our way northward and see what the cold air looks like. Let me look at the chat and make sure I don't have a microphone out or anything. That would be bad. Okay. Looks good. Ron Chalfant talking about snow in Texas there. Wishing he could have some there in Southern California. Pete Frizella asking if Detroit will see a snowstorm for Christmas. That's way out there. That's probably at the edge of the ability of the GFS model to predict that. So we can take a look at the large-scale pattern a little bit later. Jeff Krob got sleet and snow on the Maryland eastern shore. Andrew Hotchkiss reporting snow along this in the southeast today. Ryan Toomey is also joining us. Surprised about that snow blanketing Texas. And he's mentioning Corpus Christi there. Coconuts covered in snow. Very unusual there. And he's talking about California wildfires still raging out of control. Some pockets getting better, controlled by fire department vehicles. Burl H. joining us. Also Adam Davis reporting finals weekend. Fun with Tech is here, and Carl Berghoff. Sarah Wood talking about the first measurable snowfall there in Indiana. 3 to 4 inches there and up to 9 closer to Lake Michigan. Megan John reporting a warm 30 degrees in Minnesota with banded flurries done with regular classes. And Electric Dog also with us. Okay, so we're going to head further north into that cold air. We'll try Nashville. So there's Nashville right there. You can see the top of the cold air mass in that region. Let's go further north. Wish we had a sounding right in that area. It's quite a gap. I'm going to try going up to Wilmington. And the column getting a lot colder, topping out at about 21,000 feet. And then Detroit. Okay, now we're definitely looking very cold there. Now we've got the tropopause very low. I think this is probably one of the lowest levels I've seen in a while. Topping out at about maybe 22,000 feet. And a tropopause that low is not too common in the polar regions. I think they average about 25 to 30,000 feet up there. Probably closer to about 25, maybe. Yeah, they're probably in this ballpark there, but you can see a lot of the stratosphere up there and very dry conditions in that stratosphere. There's the moisture trace, whereas in the troposphere, a little bit more humid there. And then let's try Moosonee. You can see the tropopause a little bit higher in that area, and very cold column. And just for the heck of it, let's try going up to Cambridge Bay, up in the Northwest Territories. Very cold conditions. There's an Arctic air mass very close to the surface, frontal inversion, and then above that we have polar air. So this would be basically maritime polar air above that, and then Arctic air beneath that inversion right here. Here's a look at snowfalls earlier today. Not much snow in the U.S. itself. It's actually below average as far as snowfall, but you take a look down in Mexico. We've got 3 to 10 inches being reported there in the northern part of Mexico. And one way we can look at that is to look at the polar orbiter data. Okay, so here we're looking at the central U.S. Not a whole lot going on, just some clouds here and there. The Rockies. Let me bring up the state outlines. Okay, so here's the Four Corners area. We can see a little bit of snow there in Colorado. But it's pretty dry through much of the Four Corners area. And then we go southward. There's Tucson. Here's El Paso. There's White Sands. Only a little bit of snowfall there in the Silver City area of New Mexico. Then we go further south, cross over into Old Mexico, and look at that. Now we're picking up snow in the higher mountains, just south of El Paso there. And look at that. We go even further south. There's snow everywhere, all the way down to Durango and way south of Chihuahua. And we're seeing snow all the way down in this area here. I don't know all the towns, but this is about halfway down to Mexico City, looking at about 25 degrees latitude north. This isn't a high plateau area, so got to keep that in mind. Elevation's about 4,000 to 6,000 feet in the valleys. And look, there's some good snowfall right there. At least I'm pretty... No, I think that might be stratus. Let me try taking a look. Let me switch over to the other satellite. Yeah, all the satellites not looking very good in that area. I'm not 100% sure what that is. I think that might be... Oh, yeah, I think that is heavier snowfall. I can kind of see the outline of maybe a river in here. I don't know why it's so locally heavy compared to here. That could be fog. I don't know. That's kind of a mystery. I would need to see animation. And that's probably not going to move very much. So I think that's either going to be fog or snow in that area. But it looks like a lot of the snow all the way down into the central part of Mexico. It's already melted around the Laredo area here. So it's mostly persisting in the plateau regions. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, the thermal picture, what's happening around the U.S. Well, we've obviously got cold air in the Great Lakes and the eastern U.S. and warm air out west. So we got a configuration kind of like that. Warm front moving through Dakotas, into Saskatchewan, into Alberta. And then down to the south, we've also got kind of a moderating trend in that area. Looks like the warm front has been kind of frontalicized in that area. It's been spread apart by the wind field in that region. So we can't really pick out a frontal boundary in this area, but it is slowly warming. And then along the east coast, we've got the other part of that frontal boundary. Cold front moving through Tampa and Vero Beach and extending all the way down into Mexico and then up into the Canadian Maritimes, or close to there, kind of like that right there. And then on the other coast, frontal system kind of like that, but that may be moving more towards British Columbia, and I know that based on the long wave pattern. If you look at the thickness and kind of look at the large scale picture, it looks kind of like this, kind of like a split flow pattern. So this is basically a Rex block here, and I think these systems are kind of moving along and up towards where the ridge is, so probably heading into the Juneau and Ketchikan area there. Okay, 850 millibar chart. I can look at the plots here and pick out where the 850 front is. Looks something like that. We've got warm air at 850 coming on shore in North Carolina. And plenty of warm air there in Florida. Lots of cold air in Texas and on up into the Midwest. And looks like we got a bit of cold air in the valleys there in Boise and Salt Lake City. Then let's take a look at the 250 millibar chart. This shows the jet stream pattern. We can see that jet stream all the way down in Old Mexico. That's going to be a polar front jet all the way down there. And then another segment coming in from Canada like that, and ridging kind of predominating across the west coast. So long wave ridge on the west coast and a trough approaching the east coast, probably covering much of the eastern U.S. like that. All right, we'll take a look at the surface chart. Don't have too many plots in Mexico right there, but there's freezing temperatures right there, and a lot of the cold air being blocked by the mountain range in that region. And we're talking about this mountain range, the Sierra Madre Occidental. So we're not going to get too much of that cold air spilling over into the Pacific. So most of it's being kind of held in that region right there. And let's head into the mesoscale picture. We'll take out a few select areas. Probably starting with the Santa Ana winds there in California. Okay, so here's the picture in California about right now. 01Z looking like this. So yeah, I do got Santa Ana winds a little bit lighter, I think, than yesterday, but we can see the higher pressures, 1040 millibar high across the deserts of Nevada. So we do got a pressure gradient in effect. And let's see degrees there in Vegas. 32 at Tonopah. Yeah, that's on the warm side. But still, strong southerly winds there in Baja California and the Gulf of California. And things warm up tomorrow, 75 there at Los Angeles. And then the next day, almost up to 80 degrees in that area. Okay, next we'll take a look at Texas, because Obviously, that's where I am. So what are we looking at? Kind of like this, and we see there's the high pressure area right there, Oklahoma City down to Wichita Falls, and out of the north in Louisiana. So I think we've got a bit of a anticyclone there across northeast Texas. So it's going to mean a very cold night. And let's see what happens overnight. Lots of freezing temperatures across Texas. And then by dawn, we're looking like this. Freeze line all the way just pretty much along I-10, just south of there. Then we should see a rapid warm-up tomorrow. You can see we are up to almost the 60s in places like San Antonio, San Angelo, and Big Springs. Another cold night likely tomorrow night because the air is very dry, which means it's going to radiate very quickly. So it looks like the freeze line again near I-10. And then going into Sunday, looking like this here. Temperatures almost up to 70 along the Caprock with that very strong downslope flow. See that right there? Westerly winds, and that usually means a rapid warm-up to the Edwards Plateau, the area off the Caprock, and places like DFW and Wichita Falls. They're very sensitive to downslope flow like this. Then for the southeast U.S., let's check that out. There's that front right there, and we talked yesterday about that cyclone just northwest of Tampa. And currently we're looking at this right here. Got the front sinking southward. That little cyclone right there just northwest of Tampa. And the leading edge of the front looking like that. So basically if you're driving up I-95, 75 degrees around Vero Beach, 75, and then you get to Jacksonville, now you're down to 48. And then you're down to 42 in Georgia, and then 35 at Atlanta. So that's one way you can use to find where the front is. Take that imaginary car drive from south to north, and obviously you're going to hit the cold air right around there with a wind shift. So the rest of that front's going to come through overnight, and you can see that there's more rapid motion over here than there is over here. And that's probably due to some cyclonic rotation in this area. So that's probably that little wave along the front, kind of a stable wave. And then the remainder of the front comes through Tampa tomorrow morning. And there it is, pushing towards Lake Okeechobee by about 11. And then coming right into Miami about noon. And you can see, well, actually you can't see. Let me fix that. So there it is, 78 degrees right there at Tampa, or at Miami, contrasted with 61 at Fort Myers and 57 at Vero Beach. So very strong. That front, when it arrives, you're definitely going to know that. And I would be looking for maybe a Arcus cloud, or maybe some sort of, I don't know what's going to be along the leading edge based on this. I would have to look at some other data, but I think it's going to be variable, very noticeable, and I would probably look for some. Okay, then we'll take a look at Alaska. I'm just kind of curious about that. Very deep system off the Gulf of Alaska right there. And looks like a higher pressure across the north slope, but not very much. Only 10-20 millibars. This time of the year we want to see 1040, 1050 for very strong Arctic high pressure, and we don't have that. So just a lot of cold air up there in the polar ice pack area, being blocked by the Brooks Range up here. And then kind of a stagnant air mass near the ground. And doesn't look like a whole lot of change there over the next 48 hours. Okay, so I think we can head into the forecast. Let me see if there's any other charts we forgot to cover. Yeah, I think we're good there. Let me give you the satellite loop, and I'll take another look at the chat here. I picked this enhancement curve because this really shows the cold air. There's a lot of distinction between the cold air and warm air out in this region, the cold and warm ground. Let me show you a different example. This is old data, but it'll give you the general idea. You can see with this enhancement curve, we can't really see temperature contrast very well at the surface. Everything looks kind of like green and light blue. But this enhancement curve is a lot better. So we can see right here, I guess around just north of Fort Smith, a little area of low cloud moving through, and it looks like a little tail end. And then some more maybe low and mid cloud coming in through Kansas. But the coldest air at this moment across northeast Texas right there, you can see actually, hang on a second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's going to be the colder air up there, and then we've got warmer air across the Rio Grande right there in Pecos River Valley. Got some thunderstorms in Florida right there. So I guess that front is going to come through with some convective elements, and then further back behind the frontal surface, a lot of mid and upper level clouds. So this has the look of an anafront. So much of the lift occurring back behind the frontal boundary. And we can see the frontal boundary all the way down there in Mexico. Looks like maybe it goes something like that, and I think we've got our gap winds blowing through right here. And let me see if I can pick that up on digital atmosphere. Yeah, digital atmosphere crashed right there. I need to get that going again. I was doing some stuff with the memory here. Okay, so let me retrieve the latest data. We'll get the 0Z data. Actually, let me go back a little bit further in the day. We'll go back to 21Z. Because that'll show the gap winds a little bit better. If we want to kind of show that earlier in the day. So we're looking at this area right there, and it doesn't look too bad, although I think if we had some stations in the higher elevations, that would show those winds a little bit better. Let me get rid of some of these stations here, and I'll show you the potential temperature. And I think we're good. Let me plot this. Okay, so there's our potential temperature field. And now the location of the front is a little easier to pick out. You can see temperatures in this part of Mexico in the 70s, 76 right there, and 73. Meanwhile, you go up a little further north and we've got 40s. The station right here, 39, 21, that's pretty significant, and 29 right there. So yeah, our front is looking something like that right there. So it's being hung up against the mountains right here, and then it runs through the higher plateau area here, and then further to the east. This is very interesting, and I kind of wonder what the sky looks like in some of those areas. So, yeah, this would be a pretty interesting day to be a forecaster there in Mexico. And I wonder how some of the airlines like Mexicana are handling this. I'm guessing they probably contract with some of the American forecasters for their flight services. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you this, and I'll take a look at the chat real quick. Got a lot of discussion in here, but yeah, Ryan is looking for flights around Florida to divert tomorrow morning if things blow up there. Jeff Craw pretty busy with wind grids, and yeah, sorry to hear that. You can always take a break, of course. I have to do that with Digital Atmosphere there myself. But yeah, great program there. We appreciate the efforts. Let's see, minor buffering. Carl Berghoff reporting he's on a learning curve with some books. Holton's Dynamic Meteorology, very good. All right, so yeah, let's head into the forecast. That way I can wrap things up and turn my heater on. I've got it off, so I don't have a whole lot of white noise, but it's getting cold here very fast. Okay, so heading into the forecast, here we go. Looking at the GFS, a little bit of snow back there from central Virginia through the Atlanta area down to almost New Orleans. Let me check that out and take a look at some of the weather charts. Okay, so here's the current plots down in the southern U.S. And let's see, yeah, we've definitely got some snow. North Carolina, around Charlotte, Asheville. Actually, maybe a little north of Charlotte right there. But all the way down to, let's see here, north of... Yeah, Atlanta still has rain at this time. So there's our snow. A little bit of snow there in Selma, Alabama. Mobile, Alabama getting some snow, and I think what's happening back in this region, I think a lot of it is elevated. So we've probably got that cold air sweeping, or that dry air sweeping in, and probably causing a little bit of virga there, since the precip elements are up very high. And yeah, down in the Gulf, some gusts up to 33 in that area. And then in Florida, there's the front, just north of Daytona Beach, and about 30 miles north of Tampa. So this will be coming through later tonight. Okay, so running forward, you can see the high pressure there across the western U.S. and Texas, all the way up into the Great Basin. A lot of the stronger cold air advection that's going to be moving out into the East Coast. Hang on a second, I'm out of order here. Okay, that looks right. So anyway, yeah, cold air in the eastern U.S. right there, the axis in Mississippi and Louisiana, and that'll shift eastward during the day tomorrow. The heavier precip will stay mostly out in the Gulf Stream waters. Some snow showers around New York and Washington. And then things will be pretty quiet. We're going to have a lot of downslope flow. Looks like a bit of an Alberta clipper coming in through Minnesota tomorrow. Here comes another one. So this is moving through during the day on Monday. So yeah, it's Monday before we have any big changes. So this one will go through the Great Lakes area, probably some lake effect snows there. And that Alberta clipper actually develops, it appears. So some snow for New York Monday and Tuesday. And then quiet once again, and I think we have another Alberta clipper coming south, and yeah, there it goes. Actually, it's a little further south, kind of like that right there. So yeah, here this one comes on Thursday. And this pushes all the way down into Texas right there. So a reinforcing shot later next week. But pretty quiet. And then we get the western U.S. becoming active around Sunday the 17th. There's our first system coming together out in that region. And then emerges out of the Great Plains on the 17th Sunday. Things look kind of stormy around Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas. And then things take off into the Midwest. So it looks like some snow there for mid-18th. Even probably a little bit of... this is really too... this is a 234-hour chart, so we're not going to be able to split hairs on this. But it looks like maybe somewhere in here, maybe a chance of some sleet or ice. The tail end of the system will come through Texas around the 18th, 19th, and maybe some thunderstorms along the leading edge right there. It's like another shot coming through the Great Lakes, and then things start to go downhill once again in the northwest U.S. for the 21st. So a major system possibly coming together there, affecting mostly the central and north plains. But the tail end will be coming out 22nd, 23rd, and there it is. So this is how things look on the 23rd. So I think maybe going into Christmas Eve, things may be pretty active there in the northeast U.S. And that's all I have there. So it looks like possibly a cold Christmas coming up. But I've seen this model flip-flop back and forth, so we're not going to know for sure for probably about another week or so. Okay, let's see. I'm probably about done here. Let me get my music queued up. Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll do that one. All right, let's see. I think we're about done. Jeff Krob has got sleet pinging on his window there in Maryland. And snowing up in Carl Burkhoff's place up there in northern Wisconsin. Lake effect snow machine to start shortly. Okay, well, that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you watching the webcast. So I'm going to go turn my heater on and start enjoying the weekend here. So y'all take care, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.